Well, yes, indeed, we're focusing on the NLC strike or not. Mr. Joe Ajaero joins us from our studios in Abuja to shed some light on this one. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today, Mr. Ajaero. Let's start with you telling us, what is the current position about the leadership of NLC? Because there are those who wonder, do we still have two groups, and why?
Well, since after the 2015 election of the NLC, the two groups emerged, and we have maintained the two groups up to this moment. I'm aware that the veterans, including the Edo State governor, they have been making efforts to reconcile the two groups. It has not been successful. Just on May 1st, which is Worker Day, you saw the two groups organizing the May Day separately. So the two groups have been there.
You have many who wonder that ever since, since you just authenticated, the two groups have been there. But why do you think that now the federal government is reaching out to you to also negotiate about the strike when previously they didn't do that?
Well, maybe they have not considered it necessary, and now they are considering it necessary. Why do I say that? If you are the president of this country, or minister of power, or even the secretary to the federal government, you will not ignore the critical unions. You will not ignore their leaders at a point in time when even there is threat to industrial action. I think that might be the problem. But even at that, the veterans who have been trying to reconcile the two groups maintain clearly that what they want is an all-inclusive NLC where the two groups are represented. Now, at any point in time, one of the two groups decides to say that it is the authentic and only group, then that's where you still have problems. I think that was what happened exactly during the process of this negotiation. The federal government realized that the issue at stake was petroleum, and NUPENG made it clear that the other group cannot represent their interests. This is the NLC they belong to. And they did send invitation across. And we came there, in the spirit of joint leadership, And the other group said they are not going to talk. I think we are the people that carried ourselves to the federal government to show our division. Ordinarily, if we had a unified position and carried it to the federal government, they will stand by it.
But are you sure your group is not being used to further drive a wedge within the NLC?
Used by who? That's the question. It's important. If you say the other group have been working with the federal government, they are being used. So at what point in time is my group being used to drive a wedge?
Because right now you're supposed to present a common front for the strike, but it turns out since your group didn't join, the other group is on the street.
Yeah, who called the strike? I think it's important to understand who called the strike. Who gave ultimatum for the strike. How did the person do that? Did the person consult the other? What happened? Even at the point of calling strike in the then NLC, can you call it, because NLC is not a union, is an umbrella body that is made up of other unions. Have you informed the other unions? Have you held meetings with them? Have you sensitized? Can you call for a strike on a Friday without holding meetings and say it starts on a Wednesday? What is the import of the strike? So is it for the fun of strike? Those are issues.
So if you look at it now, it would mean that perhaps you see reasons why the NLC should go on strike. Perhaps what you don't agree with is the modalities or processes leading up to this strike action. Is that what it is?
Well, the situation clearly is that every Nigerian, as we talk now, we came up to say this increase is very high. And then there were two schools of thought because we held our organ meetings. Some were arguing on palliatives. Some were arguing that even there was no subsidy. Some were arguing that, oh, Mr. President is credible, we should give him a chance. If he says he's going to do this, he's going to do this. And then how do we approach this? And we came up with a statement that government should immediately negotiate this process and set up machinery to addressing them. So whether the 145 is high, yes, and every one of us felt we should address it. And now the mode of addressing it is where we had this disagreement. Whether we should meet, discuss it, and when discussion fails, we go back to the drawing board and plan for an action. To that extent, I agree.
Well, the thing about this strike is, negotiations between government and labor or any other group, it usually takes a while. For this one, how do we know it's going to be concrete? Has any pen been put to paper at the moment?
Yes, what we did was to have an agreement, like it was reported in the dailies, to have a committee, because we have raised all these issues of palliatives, a poor minimum wage. We started even before the May Day, the effect of this on Nigerians generally, not the workers alone, and the process of pricing, and because that is what is at the center of it. And my group realized that even if we go now and reduce it to even 50 naira, and the law has been there on the position of PPPRA, we will still be, legalizing that semi-legality which we kicked against. And then we insisted that within these 2 weeks window we created, that the PPPRA, which is the appropriate body for pricing, must be reconstituted, so that they will start their functions immediately. All these ones we have looked at the issue of social security, which has been at the point, critical point for those who don't have jobs. We have looked at all these ones, and we intend to go into discussions and negotiation, not as my group alone, but entire level, TUC, NLC, through NLCs, with their representatives. Now, if we really want to do a thorough action, we allow this committee to be working while we sensitize people, assuming this process fails, within the next 2 weeks. I don't believe that we can sensitize for an action within 48 hours. That's what is on the table.
We'll come back to this whole process leading up to strike action, but let's also talk about what we tried to highlight yesterday, and it has to do with the future of NLC in the country. With your group and the other group, now we always talk about two groups. Don't you think that with all of this and this strike action by one group and the other still on the negotiating table with the government, the days of the labor union in the country are numbered?
No, I don't think so. I think what you are seeing today as even NLC was a creation of General Olusegun Obasanjo. In 1977, 1978, there were 4 labor centers in the country. For obvious reasons, to maintain control, he decided to merge the 4 labor centers to become one NLC. And if you check again, around 2000 or thereabout, when he was president, he felt that having brought them together, they were becoming too powerful for him to control. That was the time he put to force the creation of the Trade Union Congress. And I know of countries that have 3 or 4 labor centers. I know of countries, because all these things are based on agreement to work together. So if NLC decides to come together and work, they will agree to work. If you still have 10, after all, NLC is made up of about 40 unions. If you now have, only 2 unions, only 10 unions, only 20 unions trying to work alone, they are free to do that. No, I don't think that would. And if they agree on any policy issue like this one, no, if we had agreed that this is our position, whether there are 20 of us or 30 unions, they will still agree to maintain a common front. I don't think that by the fact that you have 2 groups which have been talking on the need for them to come together and they have not agreed, that the best thing was for you to now agree with one group and impose their will on the other group, especially when the issues being discussed, the issues on energy, the issues of petroleum, the issues of electricity tariff, belong to the other group and you want to keep them away and discuss with the other group, definitely it will not fly.
How many of those about 40 affiliate groups are with you on this?
Well, if you are talking of numbers, I think you need 12 unions to form a labor center, and as at now we have about 16 with us. And in terms of the critical nature of unions, we have all the critical unions that you require in the Nigerian economy to run a union.